So we've got to get the MR12 stuff out the way. It's a big change. My sources have told me it is coming. It's, not something that is just it's data mined, but it's wrong. It's not an experiment. It is something that's going to be there in CS2. So let's talk about it and what it might mean for the game, just in case you don't know what we're talking about. This is the original tweet that started everyone all a hubbub. So this is from Aquarius, who is a known data miner and has been a very reliable source of information. Not like that other fella, I can't even remember his name. What is it, Tyler something? Him, the one who did the really embarrassing video that CS2 definitely wasn't coming. Tyler McVicker, that's the cunt. Yeah, sorry. He just says any old shit for clicks. Aquarius is definitely one of the good ones. Does all seem to be verifiable. Subtle, but significant matchmaking changes in the latest Counter-Strike 2 update. And then he goes on to do some bullet points, which are from now on, competitive is first to 13 rounds, including Premier. Seems like the devs are getting rid of short competitive matches. Premier matches will have 20-second freeze times, 1 overtime. The game ends as a tie if you tie the overtime, and 4 30-second timeouts. If these changes are here to stay, I think it would be safe to assume that esports is going to adapt to MR12 as well. And this set off a big chain of discussion about, should we adopt MR12 in esports? Now, just for people that don't understand terminology, because I'll poke fun at them later, MR's max rounds, it means per half, so the maximum number of rounds a half. 12 rounds a half. The maximum rounds in a half is the number after the MR, right? So just letting you all know that, because I've seen MR13, I've seen when people were talking about CGS, they're calling it MR10. It was MR9, obviously. It's first 210, first 213. It's not interchangeable. First 2 and MR are not the same. And I even saw someone on Reddit make a thread going, wow, it looks like competitive is going to MR24, which would mean that a fucking game would last potentially 48 rounds with an overtime at the end. I've got a link to that. I'll throw that up somewhere. I should do it here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep this up so we can talk about it, right? So anyway, currently we have MR15. As you know, the first to 16 rounds wins the map. And MR15 is seen as classic Counter-Strike in the eyes of a lot of people, even though it was broadly adopted in about 2005, I want to say, if memory serves me correct. And we'll get into the reasons for that. But let's just start with the first point I want to make, because I did see, I watched a lot of cool content. Watch Launder's video on this. He did a 20-minute off-the-cuff video where he's doing that thing where he holds the mic and saying demo instead of demo. You know what Launder's content's like. He says, he generally would want to keep MR15, I think was ultimately the premise of his video. He feels that's like the better way. There was a lot of kind of esports purists, let's call them, talking about that and how it means. And I'm going to break from that norm. But the first point I want to make is we would be under no obligation unless Valve said otherwise, which historically they've never done, to use the config that they use for the matchmaking experience. It certainly would be desirable to do that. Valve really like the idea of you playing a competitive game of Counter-Strike and it having all of the trappings, all of the same components as a high-level competitive pro match. They believe that's how we get future pros, and that's why we've always had such a fantastic procession of talent in CS. You think about all the young people that have come through over the years. It's because you can go from playing matchmaking to playing in a Faceit to playing in a pro team, and ultimately the skill set, the knowledge, while you're leveling up all the time, the fundamentals remain the same. So I don't think anyone right now, with things the way they are, people would want to deviate from Valve's vision for the game. It's a shaky time if you're one of these big tournament operators. Valve kind of knows that they do need you for the esports side of things, but they're also made it abundantly clear we are entering a new era of Counter-Strike. I'm currently working on an article called Thanks Valve, but Fuck You. That's the working title. Because ultimately, what I've realized is the entirety of CSGO was an experiment. They literally treated CSGO as the middle child before finally putting all their energy into this one. And why do I say that? Because, first of all, they outsourced it to Hidden Path. I played in that beta. I distributed that beta. It was terrible. They set up a forum for pro feedback. The pros killed that by being a bit too vociferous in their feedback. And, you know, love you, but Lurpis was like all the time on HLTV. Valve don't listen to anyone. Blah, blah, blah. The CSGO's going to be bad. That was just HLTV shtick back then. You know, Tommy's cool. Tommy and me are cool these days. No problems there. But that was the general tenor. And Valve got bored and they disengaged. And then they put skins in the game. What happens if we do that? Well, turns out everything bad and terrible. Yeah, we get more viewers, but we also create the unholy beings that are skin cells, a complete anathema. Any fucking paladins or clerics in the chat, you know, get your crucifixes out and ward off those skin cells. And then obviously after that we end up with their API being publicly available. And what do people use the API for? Well, you would think we would do loads of cool shit. We just make casinos. We just turn skins into casino chips. And then we end up with, you know, turbocharged, unregulated, unage-gated gambling that doesn't even really get addressed until 2016. And that's when all the scandals started happening. I know I reported on probably 50% of the big ones. And so, yeah, we then end up in the golden era of Counter-Strike. We're on TV, we're in stadiums, but then, you know, towards the end of it, we make fundamental changes to the way the game works, fundamental changes to the guns. We went through that fucking forget the R8. We'll just pretend that never happened. We end up with a god-awful Krieg meta for a year, Kriegs and Orgs everywhere, the rise of the all-Finnish Ents. The only good thing that came of that era was the rise of Ents, really. Then we end up with, they changed, we're going to talk about this in a second, but the way they changed the fucking loss bonus in 2019. And then we go through COVID, we go through the pandemic, and then it's all online, and then we get the cheating bug that never got addressed, and all the bugs in the game, and all the bugs in GoTV, the smoke bugs that didn't work with the NVIDIA graphics cards, and smokes didn't work online. So the whole pandemic era, by the way, is just totally fugazi. Everyone was cheating in some way with either smokes or coaches or what, God knows what else, God knows what we missed. And then we come back into the end of the era, and all of a sudden partnered leagues have just become the norm, and Valve have allowed it, and they're going to allow it until 2025. Now they're saying in CS2, oh yeah, you know what that Richard Lewis guy was saying? I mean, they didn't say that part, but it is just, we happen to be aligned on this one. Partnered leagues are making the scene weak, and they're excluding teams that deserve the right to compete. So we're getting rid of them at the end of the Louvre agreement and your Blast agreement, and we're not going to have them anymore, and it's going to become a glorious free-for-all like it was in 2017, 2018 in the Wild West. You're going to have StarLadder running tournaments and not paying people again. It's going to be brilliant. This open circuit's back, baby. So we're going to have that. But why didn't you fix any of this shit in CSGO? Why do we need a new version to have the good things? Cheers. No, so thanks, Valve. Thanks for CS2. I'm not going to be there. I won't be in it. Right? Don't you dare put commentator stickers in the game while I'm still alive, Valve. I better be in my cold, cold grave before you give this new generation their fucking dividend, because I never got one, right? So fuck them, is what I'm saying. Fuck Valve for waiting all this time to create the version of CS2, the version of CS that we should have had with CSGO. They're also going to start doing up their world ranking. They're going to be the keepers of the flame as to who gets in and out. They're ready to engage with esports. Finally, after 20 years of people like me pushing this fucking despicable, unclean boulder up a fucking hill. The Sisyphus of esports. The Sissy Hypno of esport, right? And now you're going to get involved at the end of CSGO and for a new game. So anyway, thanks, but fuck you, right? But the point being, tournament operators now, with the removal of the partnered leagues things and Valve pushing back a little bit, they might not want to turn around and go, we just like MR15 better. They will probably want to switch to MR12, but they wouldn't have to. One of the great failures of CSGO has been no one's really experimented with formats like we used to back in the day. You know, we used to have MR9 tournaments, and we used to have, like, I mean, back when I was playing, you know, you chose at the start of the game whether you played MR12 or MR15. Now, MR12 was insufferable, so nobody played it. But it was mainly insufferable because the round time was fucking 3 minutes. So it was MR12, 3-minute rounds, and you're on fucking DE Prodigy, getting banged out by some cheating French or cheating Germans. And that was your experience. So, crazy stuff. But anyway, I think MR12 should be welcomed with open fucking arms. And I hope everybody in CS2 esports embraces it. And yes, it's a band-aid for a bigger problem, which we're going to get to. But I am telling you guys, and I know you guys, like all you guys who are here again, the regs, right? The regs, not the dregs. You know, as well as I do, watching CSGO now is shit. It's just shit. I haven't enjoyed it since before Rio. It's just boring. It's just tedious. It's just dull. And there are multiple reasons for this. Everyone tells me the floor has come up. That might be true. Unquestionably, the skill ceiling has come down because the average Blast tournament is 5 chances to progress to the later stages of another tournament that has 5 stages to progress. It's endless safety net group stages that don't mean anything. These games are boring and it's the same teams and no one can be asked to practice for that because why the fuck would you? Why would you? So the levels dropped and the floors come up. This means that variants now, the variants we have in the game, skews matches even more. Pistol rounds, 4 spies. People are not being rewarded for excellence. And because of what we brought in 2019, I was right. I talked about it the other night on stream. This change killed any joy. Like, it took a while for me to realize because, yeah, obviously the maps are shit now. It's the worst map pool we've ever had in any version of Counter-Strike, frankly. They're really unfun. But like a map pool with Ancient, Anubis, and Vertigo all being regularly played, and we lose classics like Train, Cash, Cobble. Like, it makes me sick. And we're not even seeing, like, these maps are brainless, and we're not even seeing the teams approaching them at the highest level of the game anymore. Because they play 50 games, 50 meaningless games before they get anywhere. So this is where things started to go wrong. This patch here. And this is what I mean. Like, MR12 would just be a band-aid for this problem. It was the March 13th CSGO update where they nerfed the AUG. So we got rid of the AUG meta. So anyway, that update is when we changed the way loss bonus works. And so it went from the hard reset. In other words, you didn't build up your loss bonus anymore. It reset back to the lowest money you could have if you lost 1 round. And then it switched to up to 5, you gain the money. So if you lost no rounds, you're 1,400. If you have 1 loss, it's 1,900. If you have 2 losses, it's 2,400. If you have 3 losses, it's 2,900. 4 or more, 3,400. So in other words, you're getting rewarded for losing. But with the hard reset, that's not so bad. But the problem is now, if you lose 5 rounds in a row and then you lose a round, you go to 4. And then if you lose another round, you go to the 3 bonus and the 2 bonus. So you aren't hurt as much for losing rounds. And this makes the game last forever because you've always got money. And the problem is, especially with the games always been balanced that CT's meant to be the easier side. Well, now the CTs need so many tools to stop the Ts. When Ts are able to have this ridiculous loss, they can buy every round. They can buy rounds they lose. You see ridiculous situations where, like, the CTs win the pistol round, but the Ts can have better weapons in the second round just because of the tools the terrorist side has. And so the hard reset going out, I didn't even realize at the time, but it was critically bad for the game. And the current system means every game you get, it's all the rounds, all the time, all on all of the maps, and the maps aren't even good. It's taken classics like Inferno and turned that into shit. The problem with that is, right now, having 15 rounds of it in a half is too much. Because on top of that, pros get 4 timeouts in a game, right? It's like 4 timeouts a half. Right? I think it is. And they use them. And suddenly, a broadcast that should be, like, I should be able to do, is it 4 a map? Anyway, whatever. Who gives a fuck, right? 4 per map, 4 a game. It feels like 4.5. Because obviously, everyone uses their 2. So it is effectively 4.5, but it's spread out against the teams. Whatever. 4 per map, right? You're going to see 8 timeouts in a game, unless, like, it's one of those teams that inexplicably don't use them. All the rounds, guaranteed, probably overtime, and it's not going to be fun. It's going to be the CT side trying to attritionally not bleed out money-wise and stay in the game, while T's are able to full buy every round, or at the very worst, have a force buy that's, you know, on par with what the CTs have at any given moment. And it's just awful to watch. So for me, that was the critical moment when we changed it and put the new loss bonus method in. And so MR12 is just a band-aid, but anything that reduces the time of a game is hugely important right now. The broadcasts are a fucking mess, guys, because it used to be, if you went and did like a 12-hour day on a broadcast because you were doing ESL Pro League or something, it was usually because of like tournament operator incompetence, right? Now, it's simply because the way the game works. A best of 3, if you play all 3 maps, will take about 4 hours to get done, probably. You know, and that's not sustainable for a broadcast. Keep in mind, because ESL keep pushing this shit. Don't get me wrong, a best of 5, in theory, should be good. But a best of 5 in this meta is like, it's water torture. It's like, who breaks mentally first? Like, who gets bored first of playing the game? That's it. That's all it is. I've never met a player who likes a best of 5. I haven't talked, you know, like, but that shouldn't be whether or not we have them. But now they must be excruciating when a best of 5, all 5 maps are like 8, 9. It's an 8-hour, maybe 9-hour experience. You know, we just had one. It was like 8. The last one I think we played was like 8 hours in total broadcast time. And, you know, I'm sick of hearing, but it's more better value for money for like the people who buy your tickets for the final. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. You're there for the experience. When I go see a band I like, they might only play 60 minutes, or a stand-up comedian might just do a 45-minute set. I don't demand he does 8 hours so I get value for money. For me, MR12 is going to be a godsend because it's going to fix a lot of problems. And this is without, look, I would take pistols out tomorrow. And pistols are another toxic aspect of CS that we've just allowed to fester. It was just so... People don't realise that back in the day, when these online games were happening, people didn't really think too much about why you did things and what you were doing. And so basically, we just wanted to get the game started. So we just had pistol rounds in the game. We just had them. Or we start with a pistol. If you win the pistol, that snowballs the money. You get more money. You win that round. You go 3-0. Now the game starts. Now, here's the story for you. From somebody back in the day, right? That because I was there. Now, what a lot of people don't realise is the whole reason we end up with MR15 in the first place are Two reasons, right? The first was there was a bug in the game that meant that for the first round, the money wasn't right. And so what they did was, so it didn't impact on the game so much, they added 3 rounds. They just said, well, look, whatever happens, it'll all work out if we just add 3 rounds, right? So we added 3 rounds to circumnavigate what a bug was doing to the game. The bug hasn't been in the game from the same time everyone said, yeah, MR15 is the preferred fucking, config to use. Then everyone used to cry about MR12. Why? Because MR12, if you have a pistol round, and back in the day, you pretty much did just go 3-0 because there was less viable guns. Particularly, this is true in 1.6, but it was true in Source as well until the Deagle got OP. You did have burst fire FAMASes, which were fucking lethal in Source, but whatever. So it's a quarter of the half. It's like 3 rounds. There's only 12 rounds, and I've got 3 of them because I won a pistol round. So that collective crying pushed us into MR15. I also heard people say shit, like on the forums, and they were going, yeah, but we shouldn't have MR12. The games never really get going over in Valorant, and the reason we got rid of MR12 is the games were too short. Like, no, they weren't short at all. The MR12 games were longer back in the day because it used to have a 3-minute round time. The round time was significantly longer. MR15 was a godsend because we went to the, 1 minute 45 standard. So, anyway, all of that is to say, we should probably still take pistols out, have MR12, take the the loss bonus, and put it back to how it was with a hard reset, and we've got interesting Counter-Strike again. And, you know what? Yeah, it doesn't matter that there's less of it for me. It doesn't matter that it would be 1st to 13 to win. Having a game conceivably end in under an hour would be just a delight, actually. And I know people are all like, fucking, but Richard, it's more tactical, I disagree with this take. I saw a lot of my colleagues saying, no, because you got more rounds to play with, and you're always in it, no. No, by having less rounds become more significant. You have to take pistols out for this to really be true. But if you took pistols out, had a decent start money at the start, 6-7k, you'd still get eco rounds if people lost, so you'd still see the other guns, but we don't have this weird fucked up 3-0 potential advantage based on getting a couple of fluky headshots with a USP. I mean, that's what's going on, really, because again, we know the guns aren't 100% accurate. There's variance. This is too much variance for true excellence. So less rounds means each round is more significant, means, players have to be really dialed in and think about everything they're doing, and IGLing has to get better, and the way you manage your economy has to get better. When you're seeing players and have got the money and they're not buying, defusal kits in a really silly way, or they're hoarding a bit too much money at the expense of utility, or they do a really bad force buy, or they don't fucking do an eco, when they really should, and instead they put themselves in a position where all of a sudden, all of those little errors of judgment, which we see all the time, missed smokes all the time now, missed flashes all the time now, terrible money management all the time now, because players just can't be arsed, then every one of those mistakes hits you so harder in an MR12. So, brilliant. Bring it on. Absolutely bring it on for me. I cannot express enough how CSGO is becoming a sad boomer shooter. Like that, basically, no TikTok anime adult Zoomer could engage with this version of Counter-Strike. They all want to play it because they all want to be like, yeah, I played Valorant and now I'm on the better game, right? I get that, right? So player base is fine. It's record breaking, in fact. But the esport product we've got is in bad fucking shape, and it needs radical changes. It's as simple as that. Now, CS2 is going to come with a raft of tools and other positive things that we're all going to have Great stuff. Very happy about that. But ultimately, it's got to be that we have to give a shot in the arm to the game. So from an esports perspective, people want to watch, people want to engage. We don't have that at the moment at all, and we need to have it in CS2, because there'll be a lot of rubbernecking. People are going to come in and they're going to look and, ooh, it's a new game, I wonder what they're doing over there. And then, because it's a year one Valve game and it's not great and it's not perfect out the box, a lot of people are going to drift away. So the esport has got to be mustered, and MR12 is going to fix that. It's going to heal a lot of the problems we've got. Now, I agree. Thorin made this take. I agree with his take that ultimately it is another band-aid fix doing MR12, because they don't want to get into the weeds on the economy. But I have to believe that with such a radical overhaul, we would then get a hard look at the economy, because the economy we got in MR15 can't go into MR12, I don't think it'll work. I think there'll be complaints about it, and changes will eventually happen to make a better version of MR12, right? So that's 100% where I'm at. Now, I'll also just add, I don't play the game anymore, like, lol, why would I? But I'll say that people have been crying out for overtime in matchmaking. You're getting it. I know that you're going to get your overhauled ranking system they're going to be using. That's coming. They really want to make something that basically, talking behind the scenes, they don't want your definitive experience to be, oh, I can't play matchmaking, I have to go to face it, I have to go to ESEA. They don't want that. They want you to play matchmaking and it to have value. And there's going to be all sorts of cool shit around that, supposedly coming in the pot, but I won't, tease any of it in case it doesn't come for a year and then everyone goes, he was wrong, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he was wrong this time. So you've got your overtime, you've got your overhaul rank system, you're going to have your new VACnet system with instantaneous bans. Like, this game is going to be the best version of Counter-Strike probably since 1.6. It's going to be way better than CSGO. Now, I know people are still crying about the tick rate. Why can't we have 128 tick? Didn't you say 128 tick was coming, Richard? Right. I've said this before, I'll say it again for the purpose of this, because this will get turned into a YouTube video. Valve are probably never going to budge on the 128 tick thing, because the game was made for 64 tick. And they have said that when you put it even on 128 tick, you get weird aberrations with the performance of the game, and the more you increase the tick rate, the worse it gets. Now, I don't know if that's still going to be the case in Source 2, but what they've tried to look at is try and be forward-thinking and create something better than a tick rate. So, looking at this sub-tick system, which I don't understand the science of it, but in theory, it makes more sense to me than just saying, well, if you have a better tick rate, then it's just better, isn't it, lol? Big number good, lol. Like, what they're trying to do is to try and make tick irrelevant to hit registry, which is fantastic. That's what you want. So, for me, eventually, I know there's like some complaints about spraying and movement, and it doesn't quite feel the same. I also want to say, I don't know if I want it to be a one-for-one copy of CSGO, actually. Sorry. I don't think if you played any other version of Counter-Strike, you'd know CSGO is kind of inferior. I think early CSGO, by the way, was, and when I say early, I mean when it was big and all the 1.6s had come in and all that, I don't think it was as good as Source. I thought Source with ZBlock was a better game than CSGO for many, many years. So, I don't know. Maybe it should feel a little bit different and you just have to learn some shit. Players are going to want a one-for-one copy. I don't fuck with that. I think, let's have some look, we all know improvements can be made, and so let's do it. You know what I mean? Let's make those improvements. Let's make those changes, even if the same players who said Molotovs will destroy Counter-Strike if you put them in. the same, those players. Let's make some changes and tell them to shut the fuck up and sing for their supper. So, listen, MR12 for me is good news, and I think the community should adopt it. It's going to make the viewing experience better. It's going to make working an event better. It's going to be less grueling on the players. It's going to hide some of the uglier facets of the economy. And it's going to come at a time when people are still sort of learning the game and the feel for the game. So we're going to get an interesting scene again. We're going to have a scene where, who's going to emerge as the first, NIP, and then who's going to go and get them. I don't think it's going to be a straight continuance of what we've got now in CSGO. I don't think it'll be like that. I think there's going to be big changes in terms of who's good and who's hot and who's not, which, by the way, is another reason why all of the people fucking cheering and celebrating about your team being good now in this version of CSGO, none of it matters, guys. No one gives a fuck, by the way. Players are grinding CS2 in their spare time. I'm telling you. So those are my thoughts. MR12, I think, will be legit, and I'm not going to come along with the MR15 purists. It was an aberration to begin with.